Okay, so let's start what we have done in last two sessions, and in last recap session on last Sunday we have covered kernel compilation demonstration along with one of the exercise I have given for a string append to your kernel version. I think you guys have got the videos which was helpful. So any of you who has not been able to boot his own custom kernel, uh, please follow the instructions what is there in the video. I think you would be able to, and if you get stuck, you are not able to come out of that, let me know. I will help you out to uh, do that. So so we today we will start with the recap. Basically, in session 2 exercises, there are a lot of questions, right? The questions like how grub finds the kernel and init RD image. uh, we were actually rebooting our custom kernel, but even though we have been able to see the first kernel entry, menu entry in grub.conf as a our custom kernel, but it was not booting up. So these two questions, basically, I want to hear what because I have explained in that video why it was happening and how it does. So can anybody explain this or add anything to this? So as you see, if I'll show you my kernel version is showing this, right? 4.3.0 is the kernel version. 101 hyphen kernel internals hyphen pankaj hyphen ir labs is the string I have appended to my kernel version. And so my question, I'll first we'll go to the questions and I need your inputs on this. How grub finds a kernel and init rd image?
By looking at the master bootloader.
Okay. uh, Not exactly, but basically, a master boot record has the entry of the grub. So your bootloader is actually getting invoked from your master boot record. Once grub comes up, then grub actually starts init rd, and uh, menu entry and init rd are actually the key factor how grub actually starts your system. So okay, so I'll recap that again. If we see this file, go to the menu entry. Okay, so menu entry has this entry, and this is the first entry. And what are the kernel? You can see where it actually found this. The device IDs like UID, where you can see that, yeah, this one. So Linux, the Linux image, you can find it in this particular root UUID. UUID is your device ID, and uh, this particular option to your kernel boot option, crash kernel 384M to 128 MB. What is this? This is basically configuration for your kexec. So debugging later on, we will need kexec and kdump. And what happens when your system boots up, it loads your Linux kernel and you trigger a reboot, it actually doesn't go to the grub. What it does is it just stops the kernel and kexec again exec the kernel immediately, so it doesn't go into the boot. So when we actually were trying in last class to reboot our system, it was not working. So I have mentioned that you need to actually shut down your system and then bring it up, because you might end up that your grub entries are shown in here, but you are not able to boot to the first menu entry of the grub. So and it also gets,
Pankaj,
yeah,
Pankaj, 1 minute.
yeah.
So what you mean to say is when you compile the kernel,
Mm-hmm.
so it actually has to we have to do a reboot, is it? So that it pre-writes the existing uh, entries in the grub.
uh, Basically when you compile it and when you run make install, right? So make install basically copy vmlinux abi config system map, these four files into slash boot. Okay, you can see that,
Okay.
you can see slash boot.
Yeah.
So slash boot will have that entry. Okay, so see, this is the config file for my kernel version, this is the initrd file for my kernel version, this is
Okay.
system map file. Okay, and you will find
Yeah.
one vmlinux also.
Okay.
This is the vmlinux file. Okay, so this is actual kernel vmlinux. System map is your system call maps. This is initrd image for this kernel version, this is config file, and this is abi file. There is, okay. So uh, if you see that here in grub.conf, if I open the grub.conf again, grub.cfg again, you will see menu entries, right? The same files which are there in slash boot. Okay, so I'll recap the boot sequence of the kernel. The first thing happens when your BIOS comes up, it reads the master boot record, it brings up your bootloader which is grub, uh, and then once grub comes up, grub has all the information about where which initrd it has to bring up. So initrd image it keeps with it. Okay, so it is actually um, how would you say is uh, it keeps initrd images for your every kernel version. So you will have initrd images for each of your kernel version in the menu entry. So this is the first menu entry. If we see this, this is one menu entry, right? This menu entry is for our kernel version which we have booted with. Okay, so this menu entry is this much long from here to here. Okay, now you see what all the informations are given into it. The it has given information about uh, okay, these are all are the kernel options, what modules it has to actually load here. Okay, these all are the modules which it has to load initially with loading on the kernel. This is the order, and this is the kernel image it has to boot. This is the initrd. So master boot record brings up the grub triggers the initrd image. Initrd is initial RAM disk with sudo root and root file system it loads. Then it actually start mounting and loading the kernel. So it will get the device ID from here. Okay, and start loading this kernel into the memory. So once it starts loading the kernel, it will start loading all the once it actually loads the root file system, it removes itself and gives the pivot to the actual root of the device, and then it start loading the kernel from there. So this is the actual boot process, and this is how basically your grub triggers a init RD, and then init RD triggers a start loading the kernel. Okay, now there is another question which was very interesting. When we were actually rebooting the system in last class, we have not been able to boot with our latest kernel, compiled kernel. So I'll take in we will have one kernel debugging class where we will cover crash tool, kexec, kdump. So you will come to know why it didn't go to the grub at all. It was actually when a kexec is installed in your system, it is a kind of, you can say, uh, a lower level firmware which actually doesn't let the system go into the BIOS. uh, Once your system is reboot is scheduled, it will shut down the kernel and exec the same kernel again, so it doesn't go into the grub. So you will never have an option for loading your kernel from the new kernel. So what you need to do is, when kexec is installed in your system, you need to basically shut down your system and start it, then you will see the grub menu entry. So these two are the open questions in last classes which I wanted to summarize. uh, the module compilation, we will do a hands-on exercise into it today, and I also want to know some of your doubts and queries, what you have till now. So any doubts which you have, you probably need to write it. um, what are the doubts you have. Okay, so anybody who has doubts into it till now. Okay, so uh, two exercises G2 has completed uh, for the first class. Akshay and Chani, you tried those exercises?
Yeah, I tried some of it, but I had net issues, so I couldn't come to a friend last time to do it. So
Okay,
after this class, I'll continue with it.
yeah, okay. So what you need to do is, you try these exercises, uh, and once you have any, you got stuck somewhere, you got a doubt, you write to me, or discuss it. Just write it down somewhere and send it across the mail, so that we can discuss it over our next class. But this what are the last two classes I have told is very critical, because it's like a baseline for your next of the classes. So I'm going to be a bit slow from this class, because we are going to cover, uh, basically we have gone to a level. Okay, we are ready to make a kernel module, but why these kernel modules are required, and uh, potentially a device driver is a kernel module. So what is there in device driver, we will probably make very simple pseudo device driver kind of thing, but we'll try to understand the concepts of kernel, kernel space execution and user space execution. Basically a base which will help you to uh, dig down to the real kernel in the real time. So starting from I'm starting from kernel modules. So let's see. Okay, so this is my kernel version which I have compiled and running. Okay, this is the kernel version. I have headers installed of this particular version. I can see it here /user src. Now you can see the kernel version, which kernel version headers are there. Okay, so our headers are not there, but because we have compiled this kernel, we can find the build file in /lib modules. So this is the version. Okay, so you can see this build file. So basically this build file is the will work as a header for our all the module compilation. Why headers are required? Headers are basically exported symbol from the kernel. Okay, so it has to be headers are different for each and every kernel version, and once you have those exported headers, then basically you will include a header file and use those symbols in your module program. So here we will see a demonstration of uh, here we will start a demonstration of kernel modules. So okay, so shall I send you this, is it, so that you can try it? Okay, okay, try it once, this particular module param feature, and we will discuss it. Just paste your outputs here. Okay, okay, so module parameter, we have covered this in last session, how these variables can be passed as a module parameter, and you can see it include Linux module param. So if I'll search this module param dot h, in kernel source code. Find this file module param.h. Okay. Okay, here you can see what are the parameters you can pass from any of the modules. So there is one more thing is the sysfs permissions, right? So sysfs permission, you can see it defined here. So sysfs says you if I show you here, okay, so this means that user the owner of that can read and write. W stands for write, IRUGO, IWUGO. So user can read and write. Then you can see group and others. So who can read, who can write, you can define it by hard coding it here, or you need to give like this. So this means that user can read, user can write, group can read and group can write, and others cannot read also, to my short. So whenever the module will be loaded, a user and the group will be able to read and write uh, this particular module parameter, and at the time of initialization they can do it. So next parameter is my int. User can read, user can write, group can read and others can read, right? So this is how you define permissions to that. And if I compile this module, I can pass the parameter to it. So let's see the syntax for the same. So you need to give something like this. Okay, we'll do the same. Here we have char p is character pointer is my string. So my string is initialized with blah. So if I load this module, I can see without any arguments provided, so it will take the default values. Okay, now see the message. Yeah, so it has taken all the default values, right? 420, short integer 1, long integer 999, my string blah blah blah, this is -1, this is -1, got 0 arguments in my int array. Okay, now if I remove this module and I will insmod it again, my string equals to okay. Now you can see the D message. So this argument is being provided, right? So you can also give it on etc file. Etc file is you can make an entry, and whenever you load the module it will read that file and take the module parameters from there. So that etc file etc modprobe.conf. So you try with the different combinations of that, and you would be able to see that. I mean, you can definitely try that. uh, other options also. Okay, so moving to our current session today. Today we are going to cover character device driver. So we will Jitu and Akshay, be online. I will just get in touch with Chetan where he got disconnected. Okay. Okay. So Karthik is online. I think Chani dropped down. So let me check whether she is joining in so that we can go ahead with the character device driver thing. Okay, guys. Chani will join live from here. So she has started possibly to our training place. So uh, we will continue on this. Uh, okay, so our today's focus is to write our first character device driver. Important kernel structures, how you can actually make your device file, uh, and we will see IOCTLs, how user space applications can talk to your character device, and character device driver, we can take any case study also, but today we will just try to create a device file from a character device, how to create a node in slash dev and what does it mean. So we'll look into those perspective, and because it will give you it will not give you the exact device driver overview, because device driver class will be later on focusing on writing interrupts for the same. But current yeah, Karthik, you have anything? Karthik, you are there? uh, I cannot hear you, Karthik, but are you able to hear me? Okay. So just for time being, if you have any questions, just drop down on the chat window. I will answer them once in every 10 minutes. Okay, so keep writing your questions on the chat window. I'll turn back to the chat window and keep answering them. All right. So we will start writing the first character device driver, and we'll look into the IOCTLs also, input output control, how you can write IOCTLs for your character device files, and what exactly you need to do to make your device file to be ready for the VFS interface. So so uh, the first thing comes, every device in kernel identified with the major and minor number. So major number is basically uh, uh, vendor oriented. So uh, who has their own devices, they will actually refer to that vendor number, and then minor numbers basically represent the actual device ID. So I will first will run some of the commands. So if I want to see ls-l/dev, okay, so the first character, you can see C in the starting of this every line. That means it's a character device. It is a file representation of the actual devices. So that could be either a actual device in the system, or maybe a pseudo device which we are going to build right now. So like you can see this one also. This is block device. So it starts with B stands for block device, C stands for character device, it starts from C, and you can see the major number and then minor number. So that you can see everywhere, that major number and minor number is associated. Now I will take you to the disk devices. Okay, so disk devices have got 8 is the major number, it's a block device. This B stands for block device. This 8 means it's a major number, and its minor number is 0. It's a major and this is minor. So SDA1 has got one minor number, and one minor number is actually appended to SDA1. So SDA2, it has a minor number 2, and its name is, the device name is SDA, and it is appended to that. So you can see that the major number is 8 because disk is same, disk is 1, but it has multiple partitions which actually represents the device in the system. So this is how it maps your device files to the actual devices. Now you can understand that this particular major number means there is one driver. I mean, you want to write something into the disk, the major number identifies which driver is going to be used, and minor number actually defines which device to be write. So driver, there is only one instance of the driver. So for all the STS there will be one instance of the driver, but your the drive partition could be different for your different writes. So Karthik, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so okay, so this is what I was telling, basically manufacturer identification number. So you have disk drive, you can see that 7 number is assigned to all the disk drives, that is your major number. Now minors are basically the correct device, that correct device which partition you want to write. And this major number, so major number is actually reserved for different kind of devices, and there is one file which has all the list. I think okay, let me find out, I'll find out somewhere, I'll search it. There is one file, one header file which states some of the drivers pre-allocated numbers, and these numbers 240 to 254 are the numbers for your local and experimental use. So this is not reserved by any of the devices, so your major number will not mismatch, so that this numbers has been provided for your own purpose. So whatever that is whatever the device driver we are going to attach to the kernel right now will be somewhere around this. Its major number would be around somewhere in this range. So same thing, look at the SD thing, all the block devices. So I can see all the block devices of our hard drive has got a major number 8 and the different minor numbers for each partitions. Okay, so okay, now there is why to represent any of the device as a file is basically Unix way to handle to showcase everything as a file. So this is the fundamental. Now it is not so there is one question which you probably need to find an answer, is what is the difference of making a open system call to any of the file or open system call you do to any device. So after doing this particular exercise you will come to know what is the difference, but there is a lot things happen, so you need to explore that also. So the conceptually while we create a node in in our slash dev um, our slash dev directory, it has to actually map uh, the all the fops. So I'll come to that. What is fops? So basically there is a file representation, and you want to read, write, you want to do sync operation, you want to do different kind of operations to that file. So there is a set of function calls, basically fops in file system, which you can actually create an object and assign those function pointers to your own function. So we'll see that how we will do that. Basically registering a character device, you need to it will actually returns you a major number. Once you attach it, it will give you a major number on this range. What was the range? 240 to 254. It will give you a major number on that range. And if you call this register character device call, it will try to dynamically get the major number. Otherwise you can also define your own major number what you want. So that major number should not actually conflict with any existing major numbers, otherwise it will work. So we'll try to make a device node here, but the first thing is file operations structures. We need to look what you want to do with the device file. You want to open a device file. Basically open will give you a file descriptor, I mean that file pointer, and from that file pointer you probably need to read something or write something to that. So every device has its own behavior. Let's say I have given a read call to a device, so it should give me the type and manufacturer of the device. Okay, if I'm writing something to it, so every write, if I am writing a code or some binary pattern to it, it has to give us particular data. So particular data means if I want to say that I have passed this device 100, so reading once we write that binary pattern to the device, it has to give me how many sectors are there. So there will be a pattern. There could be, you need to have protocol, what protocol has to be there to talk to your device. So these all are the major functions which we will see in our code, and this is important one. Okay, so you have been probably wondering while reading C programming that where this function pointer is going to be used. So I would say this is the place where it is used, and used very beautifully. So VFS layer actually has one structure of the file operations. Okay, and this structure is basically uh, having all the possible operations you can do to that file. Okay, so you can do that file, that you can seek particular offset to that file. You can read, you can write, you can read iter, you can write iter, you can iterate it, you can poll, you can write IOCTLs, you can mmap it, you can open it, you can flush it, you can release it. So these are the possible operations you can do to the file. So when we actually load a file, we create an object of this structure, and whatever the read function we are writing for our own device, that read means this for this device. I have a device where any application try to read it, I will give this. Okay, if somebody writes this, I will give this. So this is my functions, and that need to be initialized with this hooks, kernel hooks. So we'll look into more practical way. So let's come to the code of this. So char dev, okay, so char dev, what are the includes are there: kernel.h, module.h, fs.h is new one, uxs.h. Okay, this is the file. So yeah, so uxs.h will have the major numbers allocation for so we'll see for architecture x86 this one, this is relevant to us. Okay, so you see okay, so it has all the functions, how it uh, actually identifies the major number for your device. Once you call register device call, and there is one more file which has list of uh, okay, that I'll find out. There is a list of all the major numbers assigned to what devices, what type of devices. So 8 is the number 8 what we have been seeing is actually given for SCSI drives. So I'll come back to that. First we will look into fs.h. Okay, so this structure, okay, all the possible operations on the file, this structure shows that once you initialize your operations function with these function pointers with the defined declaration, you could be able to call your device or your module functions from the outside, from basically uh, from your application. So what we have done here is I have created a fops object. So file operations object is fops, and okay, this is new compiler definition. Dot read means it will initialize the uh, function pointer of name read with the device read address. Device read is our function for this particular module, device write is our own function in this particular module. This is how we have defined it in here, and in this particular object fops we are initializing read, write, open and release, four functions. So what are the functions we are initializing? We are initializing read, we are initializing write, we are initializing open, and we are initializing release. Only four functions we are initializing, rest of the functions is not initialized. So if we keep writing it, let's say my new feature is will support memory map. So mmap, I'll write my own mmap for my device driver and initialize it to that. In the same place I will do something like dot mmap equals to device mmap. So if I do that, this will create another initialization to another function pointer in fops. So currently we are not doing that, so I'm removing it. Okay, so init module, again we need to start any of the module. First we need to start from here, that what we are doing in init. So init we are doing register char device. It will return integer which is actually a major number. Okay, if it is less than 0, this is an error. So possibly we want to throw an error in the init module phase, so we will return this error number. Otherwise it's a return success. So cleanup module will unregister the char dev. Okay, you need to give the major number and device name. Device name is the macro locally here. So device name is char dev. Okay, so once you load once you call this register char dev, register char dev is the function which will create a proc entry and assigns a major number to your device and minor number. So once you do that, you can create a node in slash dev, and you could be able to read and write to that particular device. So let's see what are the device read device open does. So device open does nothing. It just increments a variable named device open, print that okay, how many times you have actually called this function. So counter is a static variable which is keep incrementing inside your module. It will print a message. Okay, sprintf is basically is actually creates saves it into the message string, and then it actually prints it. So okay, so we will see. Okay, device release, what it does, it will do a module put. So it will basically removes this particular module from the kernel space. So and every time you do that, basically you device release is called for your close function, closing of the file, opening a device and closing of the device. So it will decrement this pointer. This is your reference variable which you see reference count to that device. So every time you open this device, this will be incremented. Every time you close the device, this will be decremented. Okay, so device read, what it does is okay, so you can basically pass a message. You can pass some message to this particular driver or device file, and it will tell you that this many bytes has been read. So this is what is happening here. The device write, what it does is, okay, it tells that it is not supported. Okay, so you can read this device, you can open the file and read this device. These two operations you can do. So we will the only difference you have seen, the biggest difference you can see, that the one thing we have done is we have used register chrdev, okay, which will give you the major and minor number for this particular module. So it will be treated as a device driver, and actually it doesn't have any physical device driver underneath it, but it will get assignment of major and minor number for this device. Another thing we have done is we have file operations structure, and we have initialize, read, write, open and release function. Okay, and we have written these functions here, that what it has to do. So it is not doing, it is just a dummy thing, but basically if you have the real physical hardware, you can uh, possibly write, read, write, and you can do multiple operations for that particular device on the particular function call. Another thing we have done different is, okay, that's all. I think this is the only change we have done. We have called register chrdev, the one thing. Another thing, fops, and definition of these four functions. So what so it's like a pseudo device. It will be shown as a file to you, but underlying there is no device. Okay, so we will make this. I think this file, what you can do is, you follow this. This is how you can download the source code. Everyone try this one, git clone, and this particular link. Did you downloaded your PDF files what I have given to you? Okay, okay guys, do this exercise. This is there um, in the page number 8 on the today's slide. What you need to do is you get this source code, move to that root of the source code and compile it, right? Try loading this module and paste the output in the chat window. If you face any problem, just paste that error into the chat window. Ten minutes for you, 5 minutes for you to do that. Just paste your outputs. Okay guys, okay, this would be your basically uh, homework for the CARTEF. IOCTLs, I'll come to um, the background theory part of this IOCTL. The IOCTLs are basically, whenever a IOCTL is called in the system, it usually takes a big kernel lock in previous kernel versions. So what usually happen, when it takes the big kernel lock, the another IOCTL cannot go into the kernel mode. So if any IOCTL is taking more time, it is like, if your next process cannot go into the kernel mode, it will defeat the purpose of your multi-programming thing. So they have introduced this unlocked IOCTL, which is like, it won't take a big kernel lock. Now you have to protect your data by using mutexes inside the kernel. So this particular change in 2.6 has been done to avoid the big kernel lock in IOCTLs, and basically providing your own locking mechanism inside your device driver. So your process can enter into the kernel mode, but inside that, if you are working on the critical section on the modifying the same data, you will have your own kernel locks there. Compact IOCTL is basically introduced for if your 32-bit application is calling a 64-bit application driver, 64-bit driver. So your kernel is 64-bit and you are running 32-bit application which is calling a call. So you need to have all the data aligned to that 64-bit model. So this takes care of that. Compact IOCTL takes care of that. So I should tell that I should mention it that integer would be of same size in both of the bits of object, and this file structure will be different for both of the bits, and this also will be different size. So that is aligned with the compact IOCTL. So if you are calling from 32-bit application to 64-bit application, 64-bit module call, you use compact IOCTL. So this is two case study of IOCTLs. IOCTLs, you need to read about the changes which has been done in 2.6.36. It is the same. Previously it was just one call called IOCTL, and you can see a lot of code regarding IOCTLs that it has just initialized this function pointer, and you have what is big kernel lock and what is the implications of that. I have told you, but you need to read about it again. Why this particular IOCTL and why this particular IOCTL. You can refer some of the references I have given you. You to write one of the IOCTL for this character driver. So it may be like you are just returning one first word of the message string, and you have a command like first word is the command name. So define that, try reading the code, define your IOCTLs in your .h file, and try running it from your userland. So your userland program will call IOCTLs instead of opening the file and reading and writing it. You need to give the command to your IOCTL call, and it has to perform that action. So once you complete that exercise, send the program to me. I will have a look into it. If you face any problem, send me the email. I will answer your questions, and if you have any doubts right now in the regarding this session, you can ask. Karthik, you have any questions? Yes, Jitu.
Pankaj, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, the new thing that the CAD dev was a bit confusing to me. I'll again go through that, and I'll make sure that when I read this thing again.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah. Okay. So what I will suggest is just go through the character what I have given to you. Okay, go through once, and just try to map the differences between the hello world program and the CARDEV program. I mean, what are the new things we have introduced? Uh, something like VFS layer thing, you probably finding it difficult because VFS thing is actually will be explained later on in the file system class, and some of the concepts will gradually comes up because I should tell that kernel is very vast, so you need to that's why I have taken this class a bit slow pace. Previous plan was to cover IOCTLs, character device drivers, and file system all at the same time. But I knew that it is going to be hectic, so I have made only for character device for today. Even IOCTLs I haven't covered all because I have just given the theory around it. You try writing IOCTLs um, for your character device. You try it once, you go through the documents, and if you face any issues, just give me a mail. I'll respond. That we can have a I'll clarify your doubts on that. Karthik. Yeah, yeah, your voice is quite very slow.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah, yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely follow the things that you told me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back and I'll start working on this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll look into these aspects. Well, yeah, I agree that kernel is a vast place, and we need to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely look into the things, and I'll start. Maybe that the kernel page that you've given me, I'll look into that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll start working on that
Okay,
so
so
that I'll have understanding of things.
yeah, can you mute your yeah. So what I will suggest in that the programs which I have given today, right? Just try to figure out the differences. Okay, what are the differences from the hello world we have made there, and how it is actually the process we have followed to uh, create a character device and registering a module under it and talking to that module uh, through our command lines. So this particular this particular thing needs a bit of exercise. Spend some time in today's this week time. So spend some time with that and try writing IOCTL for that. That would be really helpful for you to once we start getting into the IOCTL things, I will explain rest of the thing, but you start at least uh, uh, getting the grip of IOCTL.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely, I'll
yeah,
look into that.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jitu, your question. So file operation structure is required to basically expose your device to the /dev folder, right? So every device has that interface which you need to define your read write calls and hook it to VFS layer to make your device available as a file in the system. And IOCTLs anyway are going to work on the device file operations only. So you can see if I'll show you a source code here. uh, Okay, so let's check it out. This particular ioctl command, right? It is called by an application with this particular command. So second argument was this, and it came inside and using device read only. So basically your ioctls are wrappers to your raw device calls. Okay, raw device read writes, it's a wrapper over that so that you can get the specific information from the devices. So let's say if I want to dump uh, 2 bytes of data of the starting of the partition, so possibly my read command will give me all 4 blocks, right? All 4k blocks of the data. So I can write an ioctl which can give me like uh, dump uh, dump a word, or maybe dump word kind of thing. So if you pass that command in your ioctl call, that will actually reads the first block of the device, and then you can parse it and you can just return the 2 bytes of starting of it. So basically the device read, the ioctls is all about giving a wrapper to the specific purpose. If you want to control your devices, what could be the commands and what these commands will be doing. So later on when we take case study of wrapfs, we'll probably register a device, and under that device we'll have wrapfs file system, and there we can you know if we have replication scenario, then we can get a lot of information on like we can write an ioctl whether and these ioctls will have a different specific purpose to give you the information about what is going on the this file system replication thing. So I mean we'll take case study of wrapfs later on after file system class, but for now just grabbing the concepts, what is the kernel framework and how it is done around it. We need to focus on that first. So basically you need file operations for that also, to expose your device to VFS layer. Otherwise ioctls comes after that actually. Any questions, Akshay?
So I'm yet to try it on. I'll try to fix my laptop up and try all the exercises within the next week. And if anything comes up, I'll ping you.
Okay, all right. All right. Any other questions, guys? Practice this particular thing. So I haven't given much. I have given just one program of character device. Just just try to see the differences and read alongside to that. Once you have any issues or any doubts into it, you just keep a note of those doubts, and we'll discuss it on the next class first. The first thing we'll do. So any questions, any more questions? Okay guys, so we should take off. uh, I'm I'm taking off from here. Write your questions and the difficulty you face. uh, keep a note of all those things. We will address all your concerns on the next class. That would be the first thing we'll do.